as you need it. I'm going to try to address two different topic areas with you today. One is on kind of cognitive strategies and things you can try to do day to day to improve function, or at least support function. And the second is more focused on kind of enrichment on a day-to-day basis to say, what can help me to live a good life and a full life despite having memory impairment or other forms of cognitive difficulty. So I'll back up a little bit before I begin to just say that I've worked in the field of neuropsychology for close to 25 years, and much of that time has been spent with people who have some form of cognitive impairment. Many folks I work with, either through diagnostics or through treatment, have either mild cognitive impairment or have been diagnosed with some form of dementia. I feel very close to this topic. It's something that is very much kind of part of my life as a clinician. And I hope that some of these pointers will provide you with some non-pharmacologic ideas of how to support your functioning, your mood, and your general sense of cognitive control, as well as feelings of well-being. So that's kind of the lens through which I'm thinking about this. Can you see the slides well? Everybody got those?
Yes.
Okay, super. So hang on one second. No, of course they're not advancing. Okay, here we go. So it may seem kind of pie in the sky to think about, like living really well and living really fully when you've been diagnosed with a cognitive disorder. I don't take that lightly or want to sound trite about it, but I do believe that, these illnesses can affect folks for a long period of time, and they can have different permutations. And that part of the challenge is being able to say, have some acceptance to say, this is part of my life now, much as it can be a struggle and there can be loss and sadness attached to that. But how do we try to enhance your life as much as possible? So let's talk first about, hang on one second, I'm just moving my bar here so I can see my slides better. My apologies. Okay. What do we mean by cognitive difficulty? There's no kind of one cookie cutter way that people experience cognitive symptoms. People vary from one person to another, and your own cognitive experience may change over time. Some things that people report are short-term memory problems. This is very common, especially with the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or mild cognitive impairment due to an Alzheimer's process. Short-term memory is usually affected more than long-term memory, but as we grow things out over years, long-term memory can be affected as well. Some people have trouble with focusing attention or sustaining, shifting attention between ideas. Some people have difficulty with the speed of their processing and the efficiency of their thinking. Many people who have memory problems develop some form of language difficulty. It's usually more in the form of word finding and precise object naming. So that's searching for a word and hitting on the word that you want. In the latter part of a cognitive disorder, people can have more trouble with understanding, especially if information is complicated or multi-step. Some individuals have trouble with what we call executive functioning. And this is a huge area of our abilities that kind of is the boss of the brain. And it relates to making decisions and prioritizing and planning and initiating, starting, following through. So these are just some examples of cognitive issues that can come up. So what does this mean in terms of impact on a person's day-to-day life? When I talk to people who I work with, these are some of the comments that they make, that they don't feel as clear, as I said before, as crisp. There's like a reduced efficiency. They feel, as a result, less confident and maybe less competent in doing what they used to do. Some people are changing their roles. So they may have been, let's say, caring for grandchildren before, and they're kind of pulling back on that. They may have been working outside the home, now retiring or going to part-time or going into volunteerism. They may have different responsibilities even within the home with a partner, say. And that can cause feelings of being kind of alienated or adrift or, kind of off. A lot of my patients tell me that they don't like feeling more reliant. They feel unsure, and then they feel kind of dependent or reliant, and that it's something that makes them uncomfortable and anxious, but maybe necessary. Many people I talk to develop a sense of self-consciousness, and this is especially so in the beginning stages when there are kind of indications more subtly that something is off or feels different or wrong, and that people start to get kind of insecure feeling, and then they can kind of pull internally to say, I'm going to pull back, I'm going to be less social, I'm going to protect myself so people don't see that I can't find words, or people don't see that I can't remember, I might repeat myself, I'm not sure. So I'm going to just get kind of more withdrawn and private. Like, again, kind of self-protective, but that it serves a purpose of kind of ultimately isolating that person. And many people talk to me about feeling scared. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if they're going to go down a road that they've seen other people go down. That's frightening. They can even feel kind of lost day to day, like they don't really know exactly what to do or what feels safe. And things that formerly felt familiar and safe don't feel familiar and safe. So what can you do about this? What do you do about this kind of sense that there's a slide in your cognitive ability? The thing that I try to emphasize is that we want to try to empower you as much as possible and to help you be proactive rather than reactive. When we let things kind of happen to us and don't deal with them or get into a place where we're reacting and putting out fires, it tends to feel like it's more out of control. And so I'm going to try to give you some cognitive strategies that will help you feel like some of these glitchy things that happen day to day, we may have a system. What's important is that it's not thought of as a crutch. You're not going to get worse for using strategies and systems. It may actually help you function better, and it may help you be more self-reliant. So you're having to ask somebody, when is my appointment? Where is my appointment? What is going to happen next? That you have your own basically kind of roadmap on what to do. It's important that strategies are used consistently and that you have systems in place so that you're not reinventing things day to day. And I would strongly encourage you to ask people in your life to support those systems and those strategies. And you may come up with them together. So we're going to break this down into different cognitive domains. As a neuropsychologist, that's kind of the way that I think about things. One of the most fundamental aspects of thinking is attention. If you're not paying attention, you're not going to be able to process well, you're not going to learn well, you're not going to be able to engage well. So attentional control is very important. In order to process, you need to be able to hear, you need to be able to see well. So people have their issues with not liking hearing aids or feeling self-conscious about things like this, but you want to be as crisp as possible. So try your best to accept that hearing aids are good if you need them. Wearing glasses consistently is really important if you need them. When you're working, minimize things that distract you. So when I prepared today for this conference, I cleared my very kind of disorganized desk, which I try to keep organized, but it tends to build. So make sure that you have a clean slate, that you are present, that you get rid of the clutter, and simplify the field. Keep it as straightforward as you can. You're more likely to be effective if you can focus and if you're not pulled to other things in the environment. This notion of single-minded focus is very important. So this means you're doing one thing at a time, and you're doing that thing in steps until it's done, and you're not multitasking. So we've all been kind of brought up in a culture where we think we're supposed to multitask and that we're supposed to do it well. And frankly, nobody really does it as well as they think they do. But when cognition starts to decline, this is one of the first things that goes. So if you keep setting yourself up to multitask and then feel like you're not doing it well, you're going to be disappointed. And it's frankly not a great strategy. So don't do it. Just do one thing at a time and try to feel like you get mastery over that one task. If you find you're thinking, you're distracting yourself, you're getting caught in a loop about something else, try to notice it. Again, this is in the midst of a task, and just redirect your focus back to what you're doing. You may need to do that many times, but as long as you get back to your task, you're still on track. If we talk about word finding difficulty, a lot of people do report that they can't be precise. I just can't get the word I want, and it's driving me crazy, and it's on the tip of my tongue, and I feel like people don't understand me. In most cases, you can be understood even if that exact word does not come to you. The first thing to do is slow down, take a breath, and see if you can calm yourself down if the word does come. And many people report to me that they find the word given some extra time and patience. If it's taking too long and you can't get there, talk around it. Use a similar word or describe what you're trying to say, because you will effectively communicate that way. The person who's listening to you will understand you, even if you don't get stuck on that one word. The word itself is not that important. Being communicative and being understood is what is important. What do you do if you can't keep track of your stuff? This is a main problem for a lot of people, the notion of misplacing things and searching. Like, how much time do you spend trying to find your glasses, trying to find your phone, trying to find your hearing aids? Like, these are things that people commonly misplace. So these are somewhat simple answers. They're not rocket science, but like, put them in the same place all the time. If you get into a habit of making a consistent home for your keys when you walk in your house, you're probably not going to spend 2 hours a day looking for them. If every night you take out your hearing aids and you put them on the nightstand and charge them, then you're going to know where they are in the morning. So again, it's common sense, but a lot of people don't do it, partially because they're doing too many things at once and they're not paying attention. So slow down, notice what you're doing, and be mindful. The other time that people tend to lose things or forget to bring things is at transition times. So when you're going to leave the house, when you're getting out of the car, when you're walking into an appointment, take a moment and literally do a check. This is like sailors. I've been told by sailors that they go like keys, wallet, phone, or, navigation, or whatever it is that you need to function in that context. And if you take that 5 seconds or 10 seconds, you'd be surprised at how much time you save running back home, trying to find that thing, looking everywhere for it. It's a really good preventative tool. Again, common sense, but it really helps. The other thing that you might try is to talk yourself through something that's important so that you try to remember where you put something, so that you're not on autopilot, just shoving your jewelry in a drawer and then saying, oh my God, I don't know where I put my jewelry. I hear that story from people a lot, especially important things. When they're moving, they're going on a trip or they're trying to prepare for something and they start putting things away quickly and then they don't know where they put them. So if you have something important, tell yourself out loud, I'm taking my jewelry and I'm putting it in the second drawer here because this is where I keep important things. Or I have this document I'm bringing to the doctor, I'm putting it in my planner. And that will help you pay attention and it will hopefully help you lay down the memory better. How do you remember things that have already happened? This is tough, but there are some things that we can do to remember things coming up and things that have already occurred. Let's talk first about things that are coming. I'm a very big proponent of using some kind of memory aid. You can decide what works for you, and we're going to go through some pros and cons of, using a calendar versus using a phone. What I don't suggest that you do is use multiple calendars. So I hear people say, I have one by my bedside, I have one in the kitchen, and then I have one in my bag. Like, this is a really good recipe for information not getting transcribed. You're going to lose information because there's too many places for it to live. The other thing that people do, especially when they start having cognitive problems, is they start writing lots of notes. There are Post-it notes and they're everywhere. And then you can't find the note. And then you write something cryptic on the note. You can't figure out what it's pertaining to. So, and if I showed you my desk, you'd laugh because I have some such notes on my desk right now. But it's really helpful to try to consolidate that information in one place, get rid of all of the scatter, because that's really what it is. It's like scattershot, and be centralized and clear on where your information lives. So you can choose a smartphone if you're tech savvy, or you can use a planner, but do everything there and don't splinter into different places to document. Something that's super important is that you need to document information right away. So if you go through your day and at the end of the day, you decide you're going to take some notes, you're probably going to lose information. So at the end of your appointment, when you're creating a new appointment, let's say you're getting your hair done, let's say you're going to the doctor, immediately put it into your planner or into your phone. And there's no shame in that game of saying, like, I have to put it here because otherwise I'm going to forget. You're much better off doing that and then having the reference later than not knowing and sitting with confusion or having to ask somebody. It's important that whatever memory aid you choose is portable. Bring it with you. If you leave it on your desk and you don't take it through your day, when you go to do what you're going to do, you may not remember, the specifics. Which suite was it in the office building? What exact time was I supposed to be there? If it's an irregular appointment, it's not consistent. And then check your calendar through the day. I like to have it be routine where people wake up and they look at their calendar. So they orient themselves to the what the day will bring. And they say, I'm going to look at this now. And then you may or may not hold it. If you hold that information, super. If you don't, then check throughout the day. Check at lunchtime, look again, and you're just kind of keeping tabs on what's coming. And then you may need your partner or family member to review this with you. It helps to solidify the information, to discuss it, and to have that conversation. So you may be this guy, which a lot of people kind of report that they feel completely befuddled by their phones, or you may be this guy. And so people really differ in terms of their comfort with technology It doesn't matter which one you choose, whether you go with the phone or with the planner, but let's just briefly talk about the pros and cons of each. So the smartphone is portable, right? You can take it with you anywhere. And it's centralized, like all of your stuff is right here, right? You can have apps like a calendar, like your phone book. You can even have things that are like to-do lists that are structured, and it's all in one place. You won't lose it if you charge your phone and back it up. You won't lose information. You can share with others. So you can say, you know, my kids need to know about this appointment. We're going to have a family schedule. And then everybody's in the know. You can also set alerts or alarms on your phone, and they can remind you to do things throughout your day. So you may have 3 things going on today and you're concerned you're not going to track that. You can tell your phone, and somebody can sit down with you and show you, I do this with my patients, how to set an alert for an appointment an hour before, 2 hours before, 15 minutes before, whatever is going to help you to rally and be there. And these can be very instrumental in getting people where they need to go. And some people also use dictation to remind them of things. So you can literally say like, hey, Siri, remind me at 3 o'clock to pick up my dog. And Siri will text you and say, pick up your dog. And it might actually help you. My Siri just came on. It's a little too smart for its own good. The things that are not so great about phones is that sometimes they're hard to learn. People have difficulty toggling between 2 screens. So that's like a working memory. I have to hold it while I'm, you know, with this information from this screen while I'm looking at that screen. That can be hard. Sometimes people get distracted by, you know, different windows being open, and then they actually don't do what they intended to do. Some people just like paper and pencil. And you have to charge it and you have to take it. If you don't charge it instead, or you don't take it, it's not useful. If you use a planner, I recommend one, again, that's portable and that is large enough that you can see what your entries are and that you're not scribbling tiny bits of information so that you can't understand it later. I tend to prefer the ones that have 2 days on a page, because it's just enough for most people who don't have a very heavy schedule. A lot of people have grown up, you know, or, you know, went through careers with these kinds of planners. The other thing that's beneficial is that the act of writing can sometimes improve, it certainly harnesses attention, and it can sometimes improve our ability to lay down memories. So like you're present, you're focused, and you're writing, and it may help you actually hold that information better. If you get a planner, you want it to be organized and have sections. It's not just like a loose leaf notebook, because you're never going to be able to find what you're looking for. And some people like to have one that's got a, you know, like a binder that you can open. So if somebody gives you new information, you get, you know, a card from a doctor or something, you can just put a punch holes in it and stick it in your binder or in your planner, and it's all in one place. And again, it's important that you have it be small enough that you bring it with you, because if it's on your nightstand and you're at the appointment, you don't know where to go, it's not helpful. The other thing is, be sure that you can read what you wrote, and then it's enough information to guide you. I actually look at people's planners all the time and I give them feedback, because sometimes people will write things that are so unclear. It's like a telegraph, and then they can't figure out what they meant. So that's not going to really be sufficient. The problem I see with planners is that if you lose your planner, you're pretty much stuck. And people get kind of panicked when they lose their planner. It also is hard if you have the planner and a wall calendar and other stuff. If you're going to use it, just use it as a central resource. and try to organize it. And if it gets big and bulky over the course of the year, you can take sections out that are not important, like from the beginning of the year, say. I'm going to wrap up this cognitive section shortly. How do you try to remember something that's already happened? Let's say it's just not coming to you. It feels slippery. It's helpful to try to recall the context in which that occurred. Who were you with? Where were you? What was going on? Use your memory aid to be able to say, I think it was Monday. What was I doing on Monday? Oh, right. I went to the theater and we went out for dinner. That's where this happened. And that's what we were talking about. So sometimes it helps to reconstruct by looking at the events of the day. If you don't want somebody to feed you the full information, that's too much information for them to give you, you can say to your spouse, say, I can't really remember the details from that dinner, but it's important to me. Can you help me just set up the context and see if I can pull up some of the memory on my own? So we're getting some help, but not being told. The most important thing in learning and remembering is meaning. So we can drill things, you can cram like you did in school. It doesn't stick well because it's not meaningful. So when you're trying to learn something, try to give it meaning for you. You can imagine yourself, if you're more visual, like you can imagine yourself carrying the task out if it's something that's coming up and you want to kind of map it out in your mind. If you're more verbal, you can talk it through, rehearse it, repeat it, see if this gives you kind of a better sense of what's to come. One of the main functional activities that kind of goes down for people when they have cognitive problems is their accuracy in taking medicine. It's actually a really potentially unsafe complication. And so it's quite important that we try to help set up a system so that there's as close to full 100% accuracy as possible. 100% may not be possible, but close is what we're driving for. Take your medicine when you brush your teeth or when you do something that is really consistent in your routine. Use a medication box, morning, afternoon, nighttime, depending on how many doses you take in a day. Make sure that your med list is correct and that the meds that are in that box are consistent with your list. Again, all common sense stuff, but things that people tend to make errors around. I like to see folks use some kind of a checklist where they have the medicine name. You can even put a picture of that pill so that you know which one's which, and you just check it off and you stick it on the mirror, while you're taking your medicine and brushing your teeth, you just check it off. And then you don't have to wonder, did I take my medicine this morning or not? Sometimes that's accomplished with the pill box because you can see it, but sometimes people need the checklist. It's like an extra level of reminder and safety. The other thing you can do is you can use your smartphone or even an Alexa kind of speaker to remind you to take your medicine. But then you have to do it right away so that you don't neglect that. For the sake of time, I'm actually going to skip this part of the talk. It's largely about kind of organizing yourself and your paperwork. What I will say is that it's important to simplify your bills, your mail, like anything that could potentially get overwhelming and pile up. Ask people to stop sending you things that are not necessary. If you can use an online format, if that makes sense to you, then do that. Make a file drawer, file things as you can, and try to sort through paperwork and mail like as it comes. Because once people have piles, it's very hard to get rid of the piles and to even know what's in there. If possible, put your bills on auto pay, especially the things that are routine. Ask your family to help you if you don't know how to do it. Your bank can help you with this as well. It will make your life a lot more straightforward. Okay, so in conclusion to this section of the talk, cognitive strategies are, the best tools that we have to help you manage and compensate for cognitive problems that may be coming up. Focus your attention, use systems, try to organize yourself, use memory aids, and try not to feel too bad about using them. They're not going to hurt you. They're only going to support you. And be consistent in your use and your recruitment of other people to help support your strategies. And if you do that, I think you'll find even if you get a reduction of, let's say, 20% of that not knowing feeling, I'm not sure if I did that. I can't remember if I took that medicine. I don't know which doctor I'm going to or, what the plan is. Even if it's reduction of 20% of confusion or feeling lost, there's value there. So I would say run with whatever you can get out of using these strategies. So this is kind of the halfway mark in the talk. These are other things that can be useful to people who are having cognitive difficulty. You have a whole day, you have a whole life. How do you want to use your time? Who do you want to be with? How do you want to focus your energy? What things are most beneficial to your thinking, to your brain health? Exercise, number one. All of the literature supports that physical exercise is incredibly important for prevention of cognitive problems and worsening of cognitive problems. So even if you already have dementia or mild cognitive impairment, exercise will help you function better cognitively than if you do not move your body. You're getting good blood flow to your brain. You are working on the heart to brain circuitry, super important. It's really good for your mood and your sense of well-being. So move your body as much as you can and do what you like so that it feels like, if I could say fun, I find it fun. Make it enjoyable for you so you want to do it and you're consistent about it. Do things that stimulate you. And these can be things that you've always done or things that are new to you. But what we want is enrichment. Your brain needs novelty. Your brain needs color and enrichment and like cool ideas. So listen to music, read books, listen to audiobooks, do crossword puzzles, do jigsaw puzzles, work on a language that you have gotten rusty around. Play bridge, play Rummikub, make art, take a class, like play piano, like do whatever appeals to you and try to give yourself a more kind of enriched, colorful experience. This is in contrast with folks who tend to their lives get smaller and they do more things like watch TV. There are a couple good things on TV, right, that are enriching, but most of it is passive kind of receiving of information, and a lot of it is kind of numbing. It's not great for your brain. Pay attention to what's going on in the world. Talk about current events. Watch the news. Listen to NPR or whatever your news source is, and discuss these issues with people you care about. Stay involved in your community. If you have colleagues, if you have people through civic organizations, stay in touch with them. Your abilities may be different, but your relationships can remain. And the interaction is important for your brain health. Volunteering is also really beneficial for a lot of people, and your abilities around what you can do for others may change over time. But altruism is something that is actually very beneficial to our sense of well-being. So even if you're having a hard time, getting out of your own experience and helping somebody else can be actually very beneficial to you and very beneficial to them. So how do we use this information to decide, like, what do I do with my day? And some people, again, that kind of lost feeling can occur when you're not doing what you know. I'm not working, I've always worked. Or I'm not, actively grandparenting, or, I'm not doing all of the things in my home that I usually would do. I don't really know what to do. We want to try to create some structure, some meaning, and some balance in your life. And there's this term we use in cognitive behavioral therapy that's called behavioral activation. And that's what this is really about. When you're thinking about kind of creating a structure, creating activities, it's very important to think about, and this is for yourselves or for people you're caring for, like what is that person's cognitive level? What can they do? What do they like? What's their style? What do they really not like? And so using that as kind of your gauge of how you, like the lens through which you start to think about it, then you start building in all kinds of stuff. Fun, recreation, things, again, that are cognitively stimulating, like we talked about a moment ago. Socialization is very important for your brain, for your thinking, for your mood. Physical activity, as we discussed already, and rest. So we can't all be like gunning it all the time. It's not necessary and it's not advised. We all need rest. We all need quiet time, and we all need some privacy. So that's really not only kind of accepted, but, really emphasized. So let's say that you're a care partner. You have a spouse or a loved one or somebody in your life who has a cognitive problem, and you're trying to help them kind of build some more meaning into their day. I would ask them, what do they want to do? Who do they want to do it with? How do they want to kind of think about spending their time? Some people can answer those questions and some people really can't. If they can't, think about the context of like what brought them to this day. What did they used to do to pass the time? What kind of career and interests did they have? What kind of hobbies did they have? What kind of social or family environments would they be in? Are they creative? Do they do a lot of volunteer work or kind of civic involvement? Are they joiners? Do they not like to join? Do they like outside versus inside? How do they like to move their bodies? What kinds of things make them kind of quintessentially who they are? And those folks may not initiate those things on their own anymore. You may really need to kind of build it so that they can come to that activity. And it may be adapted. It may be different than it used to be. Equally importantly is, what do people really not like? And what's going to trigger them to have negative responses and behaviors that, are going to feel bad for them and bad for people around them. When we set people up to do things that they really don't like to do, and we expect them to like them, they're probably not going to respond well. So, being customized in how you think about this, tailoring this to that person is really important. So if you feel kind of at a loss and you still don't know, what is, like, let's say you're a care partner and you don't know the person that well, or you have a family member who's really lost interest in a lot of things and you don't know what to do. There are some scales, and these are all, you can Google them. They're all publicly available. They're basically like interest surveys. And so I've used them sometimes with patients who like literally don't, like we were trying to come up with a plan of like, well, how do we want them to fill their time, and they can't come up with ideas. So this is an example of, this one's called the Leisure Interest Scale. And it's got different kinds of things that people have typically done in the past. I don't really know who geocaches, but I guess somebody out there does. But they have a range of things that are kind of indoor versus outdoor activities. And it can help you to try to plug in. And maybe it's something they've never done before, but they think is kind of interesting and that you can, open a door to something new. One thing I'll add that I couldn't put in this slide because I had my own tech issue, but some of these actually have photos. So if the person's not as verbal, but they want to express an interest or have some choice, you can show them different pictures of things and they can just point to it. And you can then, let's say they're not as participatory, but they can observe. They can be like an audience member or, a viewer of something. Like there are ways to access that, even if your language skills aren't as good, to be able to say, I can read that, I can identify that, and that's what I want. So let's focus first on a person with milder cognitive problems as we're trying to build some kind of schedule and routine for that person. Either they're building it for themselves or somebody's helping them do it. The notion of routine is important. It's regulating to people to understand the rhythm of what the day is going to be like. Not every day needs to be the same, but having some predictability is helpful. So most people get up and do some kind of morning routine. And people vary about what that looks like. I would recommend that you sit down and you look at what the day holds. Use your memory aid, look at your appointments, figure out kind of the big rocks of what's going to be part of the day. And then you have some orientation of like, what is expected today. You can do things, again, these are stimulating activities, listening to the radio, reading the newspaper, staying abreast of what's going on. The morning may be a good time to actually go out and do things. Go to an appointment, volunteer, go to a senior center. Good structure. Sometimes they'll give you a good meal. You can have an activity. You can schmooze with people. It's not a bad option. And lots of the councils on aging around here are very robust. Their programs are good. You have a lunch, a meal, and then maybe it's time for some physical activity. Go to the gym, do something that feels good. Go take a walk. Get time outdoors, which is important for health. And then, have some dinner, connect with family, watch a good show, go through a routine at night. Like that's a pretty nice day, right? There's balance, there's some quiet time, there's stimulation, there's physical movement, there's socialization. It's feasible that this wouldn't be too overwhelming, but also wouldn't be too underwhelming. What about the person who has more advanced cognitive problems? Here is where consistency and routine are more important. Like when you start to try to do too many things, people can get confused, they can get agitated, they can feel really quite lost. So keep it simpler and more consistent. And care needs start to kind of become a higher priority. So you're still trying to balance stimulation and quiet time, but there are kind of fewer activities and maybe a smaller range of activities. Again, try to avoid things that are going to provoke that person to feel uncomfortable. Now, this term overstimulation is one that I use a lot as a neuropsychologist. It's kind of that idea that the task, the environment, the expectation, there's too much going on, that it exceeds that person's ability to manage. As a layperson without a cognitive disorder, I think about overstimulation as like going to the mall the day before Christmas. You can't find parking. There's too much like music conflicting. There are a million people and you feel irritable, overwhelmed, and you just want to get out of there. That's what I think it's like for people day to day who have more, advanced cognitive problems when they're in situations that are overstimulating to them. And this can vary person by person. But if you know that this is a place that's going to provoke your loved one, then I would say don't go there. If you're giving them a task that they can't do, then don't do that. Modify that task, go to a different place that's quieter, make it fit better for that person. And there's no pressure on the care partner or on the person with the cognitive problem to do it right. There is no right or wrong. It's a matter of like, how do we, again, try to enhance your life and give you the best balance possible? Having a soothing environment is really important. When I used to work inpatient in a neuro rehab hospital for people with different kinds of brain injuries, strokes, and things like that, I would walk into a patient room and there would be 14 things going on. TV on, loud, staff talking, family talking. And I would see my patient just sitting there looking like confused, overwhelmed, really uncomfortable. And the first thing I did was I would just shut everything off. I would turn off the TV. I would ask the extra people to leave. And I would just try to focus on what was important and quiet down the whole environment. People tend to feel better. So it's not a spa, your life is not a spa, but like having a soothing environment can actually set the stage for a much more kind of comfortable and pleasant experience for everybody involved. And introducing things that comfort that person, like familiar photographs, stories about old, shared memories, things that will bring up kind of that sense of positive experience and positive regard. So the notion of consistency is important with people with more moderate impairment or beyond. And so this is an example of what a day could look like. Again, there's no right or wrong to it. The one thing I'll emphasize in this slide here is that day programs can be very, very helpful for people with, let's say, moderate impairment, or even kind of advanced mild to moderate impairment or beyond. They're intended for folks with cognitive problems. If you find the right program, they can be really appropriate and stimulating, but like really understanding of people's different cognitive skills. And it's good to have the peer group and to have stuff to do that's outside the home. It also gives respite to the person who's doing the care. And I think it can be quite useful. So here again, we're emphasizing some social, some cognitive tasks or interactive tasks that are in that person's kind of functional range. Moving your body, resting, doing care and getting good sleep. So in conclusion, people's daily routines are going to vary depending on their skill level, on their personal style, on their interests. Getting a rhythm to the day is important. Finding a good level of stimulation and balance. Really trying to emphasize what is intact, what are people's strengths, what do they value, who do they want to be with, and trying to focus on kind of living each day well, even though you're living with this illness. So that is my conclusion.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Dr. Brody-Megha, that was wonderful. So much great information. And so many people are asking, will we be able to get those lists? And yes, we'll be sending out all these resources along with the recordings afterwards, because you gave so many great ideas. And it was just so many things that it would be helpful to be able to re-go. And a couple questions, a couple things that I'd like to kind of have you re-emphasize. Can you just once quickly go over again the FOCUS acronym that you used early in the presentation?
Yeah, let me pull that back up. Let's see if we can find that. Hang on a second. It's funny because I don't remember it.
We wrote it down.
That's fine, but I don't remember it. But it's true. Hold on one sec. I'll find it for you.
Yeah.
Here, let's get back to the. Give me one sec.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, do you want to hit me with another question while I find it for you?
Absolutely.
I got it. Hold on.
You got it? All right.
Yes, I do. Okay. So it's essentially this notion. So again, it's follow one course until successful. So it's like stick with that task, do that thing and finish it. That's the notion of it.
Got it.
Single-minded focus.
Follow one course until successful, really. So just trying not to get so super distracted.
Correct.
Going back and forth all the time.
Try not to do more than one thing.
There was a question about, we're talking a lot today about the early stage experience and being able to do a lot of things. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the middle and late stages and how it shifts as far as the need for assistance and ways to connect, really?
Well, these illnesses are progressive in nature. And so people vary in terms of how rapidly that occurs. Most dementias are slowly progressive, but they can occur, like there can be changes that are more, they're like exacerbations where there's like a sudden decline. And so it may be that people have to kind of be quite flexible in how they're thinking about what somebody can do or what they usually do. So I think one of the ideas here is, managing the moment, being aware of where that person is on a given day. The other thing, and this happens in people with milder problems, but people with more advanced problems too, is that sometimes you have a great day, and things are more kind of at your fingertips, and sometimes you have a terrible day, and that there can be variability from one day to the next. And it doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just part of human kind of variability. I think that it's a hard thing to accept that we need more help. It's especially hard if you don't have great awareness, and part of having dementia can affect deficit awareness. So some people who have dementia don't realize what their problems are. And so it can be a struggle to say, number one, I have this problem. Number two, I need help with this thing. Number three, I'm going to accept help with this thing. So we try to do as much customized kind of individual feedback with people. And I think the Alzheimer's Association is excellent in helping people adapt as their, as care needs change and support needs change.
Right. And then we do have also, you guys, different groups, support groups for people living with early, middle, and late. Or we have support groups for caregivers, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of accessibility for that. A really interesting question just came in. How does a primary caregiver find time to take care of your loved one, right? Doing all these daily activities, and then your own tasks, and then your own house. And then some people are in the sandwich generation and they've got a parent and a child. I mean, this is a whole how to take care of yourself as a caregiver, which is a great question.
Well, I think therein lies the rub, right? Like that's where most people are really struggling. And this is where caregiver burnout becomes a very real issue. It's stressful, it's difficult emotionally, but it can even really be deleterious to a caregiver's health and their kind of well-being physically and their lifespan. So it's critically important that we help people who are caregivers find a way to get their own needs met, their personal needs and their kind of functional day-to-day stuff. This is where the respite care is very important. And I talked a little bit about day programs and senior centers. Like these are safe, structured environments for people to go with staff who are savvy to cognitive impairment. And so I really strongly recommend that people, and there may be push and pull around this, but that people try to get accustomed to either a senior center or a day program and get some continuity there, some consistency there, so that the caregiver has some downtime, some free time to go take care of themselves and the business of life.
Absolutely. And know that tomorrow, you guys, is all about caregivers. So if you can join us tomorrow, register, we'll send it to you afterwards. Is really about how caregivers can do just these kinds of things and balance and try to take care of themselves. That's absolutely crucial in that regard. Yeah. And then how do you, there's like someone just said, what if somebody doesn't want to go to a center, right? That's a whole thing, don't put me somewhere. And there's a lot of challenges, again, there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, what would you suggest in specific that question?
Well, I think it's helpful if you can recruit a doctor or, involved case manager or somebody to help plant the seed so it's not just coming from the family. Like we try to make that a recommendation so that the family can say, like, you see, the doctor suggested that this was a good idea. And then you try to find a program that has best fit for your loved one. So some programs are not well done. Some of them, people are too impaired. And if you go into a program and you're not that impaired and everybody's sleeping, you're probably not going to ever go back there. So there's a fair amount of due diligence that you have to do to make sure that there's a good match between your person's cognitive level, their functional level, and what that program provides. And having that conversation is really instrumental with the people who run the program. And then being able to, try to even set them up with a peer to say, like, this person's got similar interests to you, or they're also from New Jersey and, like they like dogs or whatever. I just told you I like dogs and I'm from New Jersey. And so that ushers them into feeling more comfortable.
Right. So a lot of different things. Again, we would
Yes.
actually have to take a break, but there are a lot of questions. If we didn't get to any of your questions, you guys, please call the helpline. Please reach out. We have a lot of information on our website as well. And a lot of this information is going to come to you afterwards. But I just would like to thank Dr. Julie Brody-Magid very much for this wonderful session and list of all sorts of great things to help you through here. And I'm guessing we're about to hungry time. So we are going to break for lunch, and it's going to be a half an hour. And that we ask that you come back at 12:45. And please feel free to step away, take a breath, take a breather. You could stay on logged in if you want onto the Zoom link, or just use the same one if you need to go do something and then come back. Use the same Zoom link that you used earlier today. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and we'll get to them afterwards. But thank you for a wonderful morning, and we still have more to come. So go have a nice lunch, and we'll see you back here in a half hour at 12:45. Thank you. And thank you again, Dr. Brody-Magid.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
This is Kristen Casado, Director of Communications for the Connecticut chapter. I hope you are all fueled up and ready for our next session. Thank you so much for being with us and being with us this morning for such really, really great panelists and great information to help those living with the disease, and also for caregivers, because there are a number of caregivers who are on this as well. And know that tomorrow, amazing day tomorrow, it's all about caregivers as well. I'm going to ask you, and you don't have to raise your hand because there's a lot of you on here, but you could just say out loud, is this going through this stressful at all? I bet you're all saying yes. It's challenging, this disease and navigating. There are some great times, but there are things that just hit you in the side of the head and you're like, wow, okay, now I have to turn around and deal with this, or how am I dealing with this while I do so many other things? And what is this all about? How does this affect my day and my life? So we are really excited that we are going to, talk about this today. We're going to talk about some ways to reduce your anxiety. First, just quickly reminder to put your questions in the Q&A part. There is an interpretation. If you would like to Spanish, this whole thing in Spanish today and tomorrow, there's a globe at the bottom of your screen. Click that for interpretation. If you'd like closed captioning, because you just want to read it and don't want to hear it, CC on the right bottom of your screen. So let's talk now and get into this expressive therapy session, a little known formula for easing stress and anxiety. Silvina Ibanez is a professional visual artist. She's an art educator and expressive arts therapist with more than 20 years of experience all over the world. She facilitates art classes and workshops for people of all ages and abilities, and really dedicates her knowledge and unique approach to people living with neurocognitive or neurodegenerative disorders, and to individuals with severe or intensive disabilities. Her principles are based on a humanistic approach and through positive psychology, and really are the roots of her expressive arts therapy interventions. Silvina holds a bachelor's degree in fine arts, a master's degree in visual arts, a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, and a specialization in expressive arts therapy. She speaks both English and Spanish. So, ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to the screen as we listen and hear from Silvina Ibanez. And you are on mute. Cannot hear you quite yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kristen, for your introduction. Welcome, bienvenidos todos, everybody, to this presentation. I hope you enjoy it, and feel free to ask any questions, put on the chat, as Kristen said, and we will talk, and I will answer all the questions that we have when I finish the presentation. Together, we will explore different concepts that will bring some understanding of what is expressive art therapy, some of the theories, some of the differences with other specializations. We will delve into some cases, examples, and we will do a very brief meditations, which I hope everybody enjoy as well. So I will start the presentation sharing my screen. Please let me know if you can see it.
We see it.
Thank you. There we go. A sec.
Perfect.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. So, first of all, what is expressive art therapy, right? So expressive art therapy is an approach to psychotherapy or mental health counseling that where we use different art modalities in the session. That is one of the main differences with other approaches. We speak and we are specialists in intermodality. That is our first concept. So we use visual arts, dance movement, drama, writing, music throughout the therapeutic process. And we combine those specialties, those art modalities according to the client's needs, strengths, and inclinations, because all of us, we are different people, right? So this discipline is rooted in a multidisciplinary approach, rooted in philosophical, cultural, historical, and clinical models. And we sometimes use the art modality simultaneously, or other times we transition from one art modality to the other. So one of the differences with other modalities or other art therapy, for example, many people ask me, you do art therapy? And I answer them, no, I actually don't. What I do is expressive art therapy, where I use all the art modalities in it. Art therapy is more rooted in visual arts, or for example, music therapy is more rooted in music, right? Or drama therapy in drama. So in our therapy, we use those modalities, but with an expressive therapy approach, with that concept of intermodality, right? So now, why we do that? That's the other question, right? Why we do art? Well, so creativity and art are present since the beginning of humanity. And speaking about that, we human beings, we are symbolic beings. We need to make sense of things. And when we are living an uncertainty in life, in life situations, we can make meaning through art, right? So, so this treatment of making art and being creative help us in our neurobiology as well. So it helps us to regulate our system, right? So we will talk about that in another slide. So through the art, we share our inner essence, right? So we creativity is like that bridge between our inner self and the outer, right? So, and when we express ourselves in that way, we can we bring from our inside something that we can see it, right? in the form of a movement, sound, or an image, right? One important thing to mention is that in expressive art therapy, we can work with groups, we can work with individuals. There is not necessary that you have a previous experience with the arts. You can have expressive art therapy and come to therapy as you are, and according to your needs, we will develop the session to help you to express all your emotions and release all that anxiety and stress, right? So just to circle back, we do art, and art helps us to improve our mental health, improve our brain health, and improve our physical health, because creative expression boosts the immune system. And there are several studies around that that says that we can reduce cortisol, blood pressure, and well, that improves our well-being. These are studies from Cohen, Eckhart, Noyce, Kramer, Robert Solans, Starikov, and Torsini. I mentioned all of them. So this is another interesting question that I receive from clients. What is the difference? Because some people say, "Oh, okay, also this is an art class, right? What is the difference between an art class and art therapy?" So as Kristen shared in the introduction, I am also an art educator, and also as a clinician can say that there is a lot of difference there, right? So there are things in common, right? Like the enjoyment through the art. We use various art materials, different art media, as I mentioned before, and we look for that the individual achieves something, right? But there is some difference, like in expressive art therapy, it's usually facilitated by an expressive art therapist who was trained in the field to work with all these approaches that we will talk later. And also in an art class, it's facilitated by an art educator. There is the relationship is different, right? So the therapeutic relationship and the academic relationship are two different and separate ways of relating to others, right? And in expressive art therapies, although we use some methods, and as I said, we use this sequence of the arts because we implemented treatment plan. That is another difference. We have a treatment plan. There is no traditional rules, and in a fine art school, as you may know or not, or in another art modalities, we have and we learn specific techniques related to that media, right? Let's say dance and movement, or music, or visual arts, right? So one of them, expressive art therapy, is a treatment, right? And an art class is an academic, and it's more focused on learning, right? So once that we know the differences between an art class and expressive art therapy, let's share a little bit about these theories and practices that are behind expressive art therapy. In front of you, you have two of the founders of the discipline, Sean McNiff and Paolo Gnigl. There are many others that I am not mentioning here. And one of the concepts that we speak in expressive art therapies is this concept developed by Sean McNiff called art as medicine. Art can be medicine because it may help to regulate our system. And when I say this, does it mean that the medical model of the traditional pharmacological model approach is not good or effective? Absolutely not. I am not saying that. What I am saying is that we, with the arts, can address some things, right? And may reduce all these symptoms And the pharmacological or medical model, where we can come together to bring like a more complete approach of things. So we do different things. And in that sense, Sean McNiff says that whatever illness is associated with the loss of soul, the arts emerge spontaneously as remedies or soul medicine. What does it mean? What he tries to say, soul here is not like the spirit, it's not like a religious approach. Soul here is, for us expressive art therapists, is our very essence. So when we are in a moment of crisis, when we are stressed or anxious, we don't know what is going on, and we really don't know what to do with all those feelings. So there is some break inside us, and there is a kind of loss, right? So how we can address that through the arts? Well, we can bring meaning to that, right? And coping skills to make sense to that, to regulate our system and continue our life in a healthy way. Another approach is the creative connection by Natalie Rogers and the person-centered approach. So this person-centered approach, I wanted to mention something about that because it's a concept which was developed by her father, Carl Rogers, and she developed a complete system around that concept where we as expressive art therapists, we create the environment so that the person can find the balance that this person needs, right? It's person-centered. And this balance is different in each individual, right? So I can say, after many years, not only as an art educator, but as now as an expressive art therapist, that I've never had a similar session with a client. All of them are different. All the sessions are different, and they are person-centered, as I expressed before, because each individual is so unique, and you are so unique. It's important, like, to facilitate an environment where you can find the best tools and inspirations to heal yourself, right? So Natalie created this amazing concept, and you will see this concept of the person-centered approach in many other fields. In the Alzheimer's Association also, I saw that there are some educational opportunities where they are person-centered. Well, person-centered is that, and it is also founded in principles of empathy, congruence, and conditional positive regard. So this is important to mention because our commitment is with the individual, right? And to trust the process and trust that they can actualize themselves and heal themselves, right? Positive psychology. So this is another important concept that I want to mention here. Positive psychology means that when I am with a client, I am focused on the strengths of that person. I am not focused on the diagnosis, and I am not focused. Of course, I take into account those things because they are like a map, right, to understand the person. And there are other things that help us, expressive therapists, to evaluate and assess and see what might be a possible approach with these people. So a strength-based thing means that we are focused on the strengths of people, But it doesn't mean, this is another question, it doesn't mean that you have to be positive and up and happy all the time. Absolutely not. Being like a strength-based is sometimes recognized that there are some areas of ourselves that need attention, that maybe we need a space, that maybe we need to address our sadness, to address that we need support, right? And I believe that that is key, right, in this field, because making conscious and having this awareness and this honesty to your therapy and your loved ones about what is going on in you is the best way to find like a response to that, right? In expressive art therapies, we also speak about the aesthetic response, right? How we can address all these symptoms and all these situations in a way that bring meaning to your life, and that meaning is unique, like you are, right? Another thing that I want to mention here regarding expressive art therapy is that nowadays we are using the traditional arts, I mean music, drama therapy, drama, poetry, creative writing, visual arts, and visual arts has a wide spectrum of techniques, right? We also use dance movement, but there are some therapists who also integrate the new media. This is, for me, very important to mention, because traditional media is great, but also we can use the iPad, we can use a video, right? There are some examples that I will share you after this slide where we can see that, right? There are some clients who love photography, for example, or they like to make videos, and we, for example, combine other modalities with those expressions to create a response, and based on that we talk, or maybe we address that if there is like some verbal impairment. We can use our body, we can use our body language, we can use many things to connect, discuss, and bring a wholeness to that situation, right? So this is one of the examples of intermodal transfer. So in this case, this individual is an individual in his 70s with Alzheimer's disease, and this person loves nature, right? So for this individual, we address all the symptoms, the anxiety, the stress, in connection with nature. You know that nature is so is a source of connection, feeling, good feelings, and balance. So in this case, we work with pressed flowers and pressed leaves, and we this individual created different art pieces where we added some creative writing techniques to find words to that. Because another important thing to understand is that we as human beings, it's not like we are talking beings only, right? So we talk, we see, we touch, we flavor, we have all our senses, right? So in which way, although in our culture we privilege speaking and the word over other ways of expression, body language is very important in this field as well, right? Because our body has unique ways of expressing feelings and emotions, and also it can be like a channel to drain all the complicated things that we are like holding because of our stressful life, right? So coming back to the case, we worked with pressed flowers. We work with creative writing, movement, the scarves, the colorful scarves that you see on the slide. We use those scarves for many purposes. Sometimes for movements, because color, you can use color painting color, touching it, for example, on touching a scarf, or we can draw on the space with the scarves, right? Creating patterns. And with this individual, we work with that. We work with collage, and also we work with clay. This is, I will mention something very briefly about clay. Clay is a unique media, at least for me. I love clay, and I use a lot of clay with the individuals who are interested, right, in working with that. And I mention this because with clay you can use both hands, right? Generally speaking, we have a dominant and non-dominant hand, right? And when, for example, when we are working with creative writing or visual arts, we use our dominant hand, right? Only. With clay, that process is different because we use dominant and non-dominant hand. And it's very interesting to see how grounding and soothing is the effect of working with both hands. And in this case, clay, traditional clay, has this connection with the earth and nature. So in this case, that made a lot of sense for this client. In this second example, the intermodal transfer was with music. I play the guitar, and I use a lot my guitar during the sessions. I feel that playing the guitar in the moment, or using musical instruments in the moment, it brings it sets a tone. It stimulates in a different way our brain, and also brings like an atmosphere to the space, right? So I usually start with music, and I love to finish with music. In this case, this individual is prone to be in touch with music and sounds, and we use singing. You know that in music we can be involved with, in this case, with percussion instruments. We also work with ceramics and with collage, right? And again, in these exercises, when we work with the percussion instruments, or with the ceramics, or with the collage, as you can see on the picture, I encourage this client to work with both hands, right? As a way of bilateral stimulation, but also to challenge a little bit more, and the expression, like that unique expression, and also to bring balance, right, to it. See. So this is another example of intermodal transfer. So remember that the intermodal transfer means that what it means is that we have this sequence of visual arts, of different art modalities during the session. I brought this picture because some people used to tell me, "Oh no, I don't know. I don't want to draw. I don't know how to draw, or I don't know how to paint, or I don't know. I'm not a singer. It's not my thing." So there are different ways of doing this, right? In this intermodal transfer, I offer this client to do some drawing with tapes, right? So we started working with tapes. We also use inks and things that we had that this individual had at home to create unique patterns with inks and a foil paper. We also create the sculptures, right, with paper, construction paper and colorful papers to create a unique sculpture. And also when this client finished the sculpture, decided to write a poem, a haiku, which I loved, and it was amazing. In this particular session, we didn't use role play, but another thing that I used a lot is role play. I use puppets, I use paper theaters. I am mentioning that I am not speaking about paper theaters, and today is one of my passions, because in paper theaters we can include all our modalities in them, and it's a type of, it is not puppetry, but it's a type of storytelling with images, collage, and we can add music and movement and many things. But role play, sometimes with puppets or with scripts that sometimes the clients may create or not, are another example of this. So that being said, and I hope I am not like sharing a lot of new concepts to you. I will share a brief video that we made for all of you at Clear Guidance, my workplace, my agency, with some examples of these our modalities and some examples of things that we made in expressive art therapy. So I hope you enjoy it. So you had there some examples. Those images speak about several art modalities. There are some art modalities that I couldn't bring here because I should record, or I don't, for privacy reasons and confidentiality, we cannot like share, for example, a video of, or with movement, right? So in this video, we included images with drawings, photographies, and videos, musical instruments, different ways of approaching to drawing, and also you saw some photography and printmaking. That is another, that was kind of a surprise to me. Because when I started using printmaking and monoprinting techniques with clients, I was so amazed about the outcomes and how enthusiastic they were of using that, and how enthusiastic they were to combine these exercises with, for example, music, or for example, with some stents, right? People, all these things helps us to improve our connection to ourselves, to our environment. And sometimes we when we do things out of the box, is also a way not only to challenge ourselves, but also to know something different about ourselves, right? That we, in other situations, we didn't know, right? So, that being said, Rick, sorry. So, that being said, I will invite each one of you to do a very short experiential, right? We will do a short meditation. So before we start this meditation, is a 2-minute meditation, but I will ask each one of you to if you are sit down, I assume that you are, to get comfortable, right? To try to let everything and all preoccupations, all the things go, and to be very focused in the moment. This is something that I repeat all time to my clients, to my students, to everybody. The only thing that we have is the present moment. And it is, it's important to be in connection to that. The past is behind us. What is ahead of us, we really don't know. So the present moment is the only thing that we have. So this, I hope you can get this experiential as an invitation to be in touch with this present moment, to relax and to connect to the images and the sounds. So in the following slide, when I start the video, you will see on the video music. So I added music and also images in motion. And I will guide you with my words throughout that experiential. It's very short, but it's important for you to be in connection to that. Okay, let's go. Let's see how it goes. Okay. Give me a moment. So get comfortable on your seat and plant firmly your feet on the floor. Take a deep breath and relax your body. Let all preoccupations and concerns go away during this time. Keep your eyes open if you want, or closed, and notice the sound, notice the music, and the images in front of you. Notice the lines, colors, and shapes. And if you want, follow a line and think about, where is it going? Is there any memory, feeling, or sensation that you might be experiencing now? Notice and let the peace of this moment stay with you. You are that peace. Be grateful for this experience. Stay with those images, shapes, and forms, and see if they speak. And when you are ready, take a deep breath and come back to the presentation. So take a moment and try to hold the images or sounds that call your attention. And if those images and sounds brought for you some peace, I hope that peace stay with you the whole day. Huh? Okay, so hope you enjoyed it. So this is another thing that before we finish, I wanted to share with all of you. So we have some